So our next conversation is all about, how are we trying to make Business Barracks different? How does this sound different? Why are we using all of these approaches? Internally, we have a lot of conversations because we're
Yeah.
coming from different points of view and different approaches. And, how is this making us, because of who we are as co-founders, right? How is this making us different? Right? And where
Uh,
does that come from? So, John, maybe let's start with you, because I know you come from the academic side, and tell me about what you love about the academic side and what allowed you to connect with us to bring and to enhance what you had been seeing.
I think one of the most exciting things for me, having worked like I've worked in a business school, I've worked in an incubator, and I've collaborated with incubators and accelerators both here like in Ottawa, different parts of Ontario, and we studied that um, a lot of what other incubators and accelerators programs were doing in other parts of the world. It's really, really interesting watching people who have a chance to do a business education, but you learn specific things. Like we find people who come from a business background. If you ask them about a balance sheet or income statement, they can do those things because they've seen it in accounting. Not everybody has a chance to go through that. And I think that's one of the most important things to remember. When a lot of people start a business, sometimes they do the business that is tied directly to what they study. Quite often, they do a business that is tied to what their interests were or what their background had allowed them to do. There's some sort of skill set that you have or some sort of idea that you have that you can turn into something that makes money. So not everybody comes from the same background. So I know like I chat with Emile a lot about the differences of people who come from business schools and people who don't. Like there's some business schools who are doing it right. They're asking the right questions and that sort of thing. But the people in those business schools are very different. They have different backgrounds, different ways of working, different ways of approaching things. And we have just as many people who've never been to university, who've never been to college, who've never been to, there's nobody in their life who can answer these questions for them. That's the thing that I really, really like about the business barracks is not something that says these are the 6 things that you have to have. You can only get in if you have an undergraduate degree or if you have a college degree. It's like, no, we're looking for the mentality. We're looking for the person. We're looking for the kind of idea that they have. You bring them together, and that's the thing that makes us different. So what's really cool is like we're not worried about what you've learned outside. Great. Like you've been to business school, great. You can still come and benefit from this. If you have never been to business school, you've never been to university, you've never been to college, you can still come and benefit from this. It's the approach that we have that allows you to work as a group. We ask the right questions, and then we make sure that your mind or your mindset is the right mindset. Get out of the way. And I think for a lot of people, it's like, don't think that there's only one way to do it. There's more than one way to do it. I'm a really good coach, but I really got afraid when I first started in this business too. I'm still learning. I don't have it all down pat. But the great thing is, I've surrounded myself with people who are also experimenting and who are also learning. That's the thing that entrepreneurs have to do all the time.
Hmm. For
Very good point. Very good point. It's time for me to come clean, guys. I've been asked this question about education so many times. I've been in a lot of interviews, a lot of podcasts, and I knock education down. And if people say to me, Emile, you hate education, and I guess that's not true. I love education. I think it's the most important part of being successful. I was never involved in good education. And I've had so many people come to me and say, oh man, I just got my MBA, I got this degree, I got that degree. How do I make a business card? And I was like, oh, like, what did they teach you? So my experience has always been from people. I didn't go to university. I didn't get a formal education. I grew up and started 70 businesses and learned it all by accident and trial and error and lived the life and then got some mentors and some coaches that helped me get to where I was. And so for me, I'm like, you know what? Education is important, but what kind of education? Where are you going to get it from? And I'd have young people come and parents would bring me their, high school graduates and saying they're about to go to school to take business. What do you think, Emile? And I'd say, don't go to school. You want to learn business? Let me show you how it's done. And so I got this reputation of anti-school, anti-education, but it wasn't that. It was I didn't find the programs in formal education that was right for everybody, you know. And I know they're out there. I've seen some
Mhm.
great educated people, and then you see the stories of this entrepreneur who dropped out of high school and worked in his garage and built something, and he's a billionaire. But he didn't do it because he had no education. He just got his education differently. He worked with other people in his field. He learned in real time. So for me, education is very important and one of the most important things, but it's the right type of education for that individual. And some people, John, they need that book smart. They
Mhm.
need to read. They need to learn through that. And then there's some people that only learn from working with their hands, and we all have different comprehensive styles. So you know, some systems are good for certain people, but it could be the exact same system and program that trained a successful entrepreneur but didn't work for 80% of the class because they didn't comprehend well. So you know, the beautiful thing about Business Barracks is we're working with all these aspects. We're bringing all types of educational styles and then real life experience and getting people to work with their hands. You like to
Mhm.
read? Great. Here's something to read. You like to watch a video? Great. You like to roll up your sleeves and get in there? What works for you? The important thing is getting that education to sink in and doing it in real time and practice. So, you know, yeah, I've told people don't go to school. Let me show you a different way. But it's not because I don't like education or there's no good education out there. I'm finally admitting that right here live on camera. You got me. But it's how you're getting that education, if it works for you or not. And
I
I was a terrible student. I would have failed in university. I was great in high school because I had teachers who engaged me.
Mhm.
But in university, I saw my brothers come home with stacks of books and highlighters, and they spent hours and hours reading. And I'm a bilingual illiterate. I can't read or write in two different languages, you know. So
But you know what's
it,
really
that,
interesting there? I think I really like the fact that you described it that way because I think now we're looking at the difference between going to college or university for an education and coming out with a degree or credential. Having a
right.
credential and having the learning and the education and like that lived experience, two very, very different things.
Yeah.
And I know like sometimes I've coached people, like if I've got 100 business students graduating with the same degree, they don't
Mhm.
all approach questions the same way. They don't always do the same things. 100 engineers coming out with the same degree, 100 computer scientists. And I always ask, what makes you different? If you all decided to start a business today, and granted, entrepreneurship's not everyone, going into specific things or specific areas isn't for everyone. But the people who
Right.
come into Business Barracks are the ones who've made the decision, this is something that is for me. This is something I want to do. How do I
Mhm.
make sure I get out of my own way? That's what I like about the approach that we have. So whether you got a credential or not, whether you've gone to college or university or not, you can find a home in Business Barracks that said, this is where we'll go. I know that these three are going to kick my butt. They're going to put my feet to the fire and say, this is what you said you were going to do. Let's do it. And if you come in from 1 month to the next and it's like, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it, why not? And I mean, life gets in the way. Sometimes, like you lose a loved one, something else happens. My car blew up earlier this summer, but I figured out a way to decide, it's like, okay, that's a setback, but I still need to accomplish these things. I still need to do these things. That's what I've got to do. That's what I like about the Business Barracks approach.
Yeah. And if I can marry or even just, I think, bring from my point is the where I like about how we're changing things and how it's different. So we're not saying you have to learn how to do accounting. We're saying you have to understand how to ask the questions to your accountants
Mhm.
and understand the documents they've given you. So I don't want you to be an accountant. That's why you hire them. That's why people go get those degrees. That's fantastic. And by the way, I think what we talk about is, yeah, oftentimes you start a business alone, but you don't succeed unless you have a team. And a lot of times it's teams that you're going to hire, that you're going to bring in. But even when I bring them in, what I've learned is, like you were saying, John, not everybody's gone through the same course, has the same level of knowledge, and can
Mhm.
do the same level of work. So just because, and just think, I always use the example of a dentist, right? There's one dentist that can do the same filling and not hurt you because they do it in a way that allows you not to feel pain. Another one goes in, they filled in the same way they've been taught, but then you're coming out of there and you've had pain the whole time, right? And so Both of them have the same education, both of them, but your experience is different. And I think for me, what Business Barracks is about taking all of that and going, hey, I don't want you to be a financial whiz, but you need to be able to understand your numbers. And you need to be realistic that if you're losing money, you need to know what your flags are. You need to be able to know and how to address it. And you have to be able to sit down and go, okay, who do I find that helps me reduce this drain? And I think that's that it's taking that theory and putting it into practice. It's like a blend of trade schools and theory and all, but it's you're all going through it. You're all like-minded. We're trying to find people. The cohorts we're building are people who are in the same boat about at the same area, right? Which really gives them a chance to be surrounded by people who are doing so. It's not too disparate, right, in terms of what we're doing. And I think it's about really allowing them to, I can operate a business. I'll say that again. I can operate, lead, and direct a business. And often when I get started, I have to execute too. And as I grow, and if that's my vision, because by the way, not everybody's vision is to have 100 employees, I might say, I love being a consultant. I don't ever, I left being in business because I never wanted to work with a team. Then why would you build a team? Right? And so, but people are going, well, if you want to grow, no, you can grow in a different way. You can have a whole bunch of contractors that do all the back end for you. And you still do what you. So I think part of what Business Barracks does is takes all of this and makes it so that at the end of it, our graduates have a concrete business that's running. It's now being profitable. So that means you have to be generating enough revenues for money to be left and having a livable wage. It's not about having a whole bunch of profits and never paying yourself. Because I've seen that time and time again, going, hey, I have a profitable business. How much did you pay yourself? Oh, I haven't paid myself yet in 3 years. Then you don't have a profitable business yet. At least not in the way that we talk about it. And I think that's where we become different. That's where there's this other change of pushing people and making that transition. That's
Mhm.
for me is what creates that distinction.
And that's really important. It's the fact that business barracks is for anybody, but it's not for everybody. You really have to be very clear what it is that you want to do. And if you are going to build the next Shopify or the next, like, sure, by all means, go for it. This might not be the place that you want to start. The things that you have to do to be able to build something that scales at that speed is not necessarily what a typical coach or a typical trainer is actually going to be able to do. So it's really, really important that you know what it is that you want to do. And like any good coaching relationship, we will help you figure out if this is where you need to be successful or if you need to take another path, because that's perfectly fine too.
Excellent point, John.
Yeah, I agree. Right? We're not trying to bring everybody in. It's not about numbers. It's about right fit. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be put on waiting lists. Right? We're already seeing that. We're not taking everybody and we don't want to
Mhm.
take everybody. The whole point is it's why we have an application process. It's the reason that we have a higher barrier to entry. There's an investment you need to make to be able to move this forward. Right. And so that's, I think, what we're trying to do is it's that shift. It's not just, oh, I'm going to expand and get a degree. At the end of this, you're not going to get a degree, you're going to get a business. So are you investing in yourself and are you willing to do the work? And it's just like a sports coach, right? We're going to give you a whole bunch of exercises. We're going to give you good direction. We're going to help and hone. We're going to, but I can't be on the field. You're on the field, right? And I think that's where you have to see Business Barracks. I think that's the great shift, is that we're the coach on the side of the field. At the end of the day, you have to do it. We can train you. We can do practices. We can give you people that are going to encourage you. We can help you do all of that. But at the end of the day, you have to go out there and actually do it. And you have to do it your way and the way that you're going to win. And we're going to fine tune that. That's why we have small cohorts. Because of it's not a one size fits all. We know there are fundamentals that we're talking about. There are fundamentals. right? If you can't read your financials, you're going to be in trouble. I don't care who you are. Unless you sell so much that you can drain money, right? That even then, I would say, then let's have another conversation, right? Emile, don't. It's okay, right? I can see Emile getting passionate about the draining money, but all that to say, it's about we need to be able to have fundamental stuff. So if you're going to be doing downhill skiing, if you can't stand on skis, and if you've never actually done gates, I don't care how much theory you've read, you're not going to win a race. You're not. I don't care how good you are in practice. I don't care how good you are. You can have all the best techniques in your brain. But if you haven't gotten on your skis and tried it, you haven't done it multiple sessions, you haven't done it under stress, you haven't. And that's what we are. We're those coaches that are helping you get ready before and after. And we're going to help you be able to hit the circuit without us at a certain point. I think that's the shift for me.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Antoine. We're not teaching you what you to do when you're done. We're actually going to do it with you and get you going and build it with you. That's the educational process. And that's why it doesn't fail, because we're actually building it with you. You graduate with a business, not a piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
And that was my thing with a lot of schools, good or bad. They teach you something. If you pass the exam, you graduated, but you didn't do anything yet. There are some great programs now. I shouldn't say that you're building businesses with them, and they work on certain industries, and it's great. But that's the biggest shift here is, John said, you don't know what you want. We'll sit down and figure out what you want and what's best for you. And if we know, okay, what you want and how you think it's going to happen, it's not realistic. We'll nip it in the bud and say, okay, maybe there's a different way of doing it. Maybe this is not the right place for you. But before you invest and get started, we'll figure that out. And then we get started. And then we build. And then we grow. And then you graduate with a profitable revenue generating business. And as you said, profitable is after salaries are paid, not before. Salary is an expense. Profit is after expenses. So if you have a profitable company, you've been paid, and there's money left over. Anyways, we have a whole class just on that, so that'll be fun.
Oh, I love it. John, final thoughts? Final thoughts on this, gentleman? Why are we trying to be so different? What makes us different than the programs, and why should somebody care? Any final thoughts? I think we've covered quite a bit.
We're working with you. I think we want to make sure that the folks that we're working with are in the right place. That's important.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for this conversation. Hopefully, this continues to help as you're listening and you're working with us, right? Continues to understand where we're coming from, the challenges, the pushes, right? Everything that you are going to live, you're hearing it today. And I think that's important for you guys as you start to listen and see and discover why these founders are doing what they're doing, where does it come from, and what we're trying to achieve. So thanks a lot.